Is it okay with you? 우리 다송이는 완전 예술가 재질인데.
침팬지를 그린 거죠?
자화상이에요.
역시.
Good. I was going to say good evening all there, but it's actually good morning because this is Sunday AM. We are recording this episode of the Moviescramble podcast because we are nothing if not dedicated to you, the listener.
No, we have two now. Two confirmed.
The listeners. Excellent. We have two. They're starting to breed and multiply. I'm your host, Thomas, and I'm joined by John this morning. How are you, John?
Very good, Thomas. Another podcast under our belt, which is always a good thing, and an early morning one, as you say. So yes, looking forward to a discussion here as well. It'll be good.
I can see the window at the back of you, and I can just see the trees blowing like crazy.
Yes, well, I live at the bottom of a hill, so it does get a wee bit windy at times. See, with every episode, I'm giving a little bit more information about where I live and everything, so eventually my fans and my stalkers will be able to track me down.
And Mary, how are you doing?
I mean, I'm able to map out John's exact house, so I'm thrilled. I know exactly what room he's sitting in. He just keeps pivoting slowly around the house. I'm like, yes. I know that window might be easier to climb in than the other one that he usually sits in.
If you're sitting in a new house these days, you've moved because of your stalkers and fans.
Yeah,
how are you settling in?
Good. I mean, it's been a little bit stressful at times. You know, the usual, does that look straight? I don't think you've painted that properly, all that sort of thing. But I've got podcast space now. I have like a proper like desk and a set up in the attic, which is probably the best place for me. So yeah, looking forward to chatting about this morning. It's been a long time coming to get the three of us back together. So excited.
Exactly. There's a kind of Stephen King vibe going on in that attic. Don't ask me why I'm feeling that, but it's just something about it.
I am Kathy Bates to John's James Caan. Yep.
I was wondering where you were going with that there, but yeah, that's okay.
What a Valentine's Day card that must have been. Well, the date of recording of this podcast, I don't know if you're going to get a chance to hear it, but it's the 16th of February, so it's not long after Valentine's Day, and in typical Moviescramble fashion, we are not going to talk about romantic films. Why not? We are indeed going to speak about the film that has been decimating the Oscars. I am, of course, talking of Bong Joon-ho's Parasites. Now, this film has been released with an amazing, incredible amount of hype. Because you know what it's like, sometimes a film can be overhyped and you go and see it, it's never going to live up to the expectations you've placed upon yourself. But I did think this is an excellent film, really, really enjoyable, a lot of depth to it. Mary, since this is the first time I've seen you in a long time, how about you go first? You've seen the film most recently as well. What was your thoughts on the film?
It's not the first time I've seen you, but how fucking creepy does that sound? I finally sat down to watch the film last night. It really held my attention the whole time. Like you, I think I was a wee bit sceptical going in because there was so much hype about it. And as we kind of touched on earlier, it's like, oh my God, Asian cinema. And it's like, I've been watching this for films from Asia for a long time. I wasn't sure if it was going to feel any different to anything else that I had watched, but actually I loved it. It obviously centres around two families at sort of different ends of the socioeconomic scale, and how one family sort of usurps the sort of social norms and works their way into this kind of high-class family who live in a really fancy house in Korea. I felt conflicted watching it because the con artist family, at times you're like, God, these aren't really nice people, and what they're doing is wrong, and they're almost kind of mocking these people, the Park family living in the big house, and it's like, is that really justified? Sure, they're not happy with their own circumstances in life, but is it right that they're sort of basically taking money from them that they shouldn't be? But actually, at other times you're like, they do have a really shitty existence and people really look down their noses at them, and there's that kind of feeling of empathy. And it definitely hooks you. It's not just a kind of, it starts off as a kind of sort of classic kind of screwball comedy of errors type thing, and it's very kind of over the top with its sort of nudge wink to the camera sort of thing. But as you said, Thomas, it has loads of depth, and as the film evolves it definitely picks up a lot of different angles that kind of, some of which really make you hold your breath, some of which make you gasp, some of which make you laugh, and it just, yeah, there's so much to it. And I think sort of picking up from what I took from Snowpiercer and Bong Joon-ho clearly has a bee in his bonnet about class divide and different sort of sections of society. It kind of really picks up on this again and sort of points out the unfairness and the injustices and the wealth gap, essentially.
Indeed, you kind of like refer to the kind of the class divide type thing. The movie, the name Parasite, clearly when you kind of watch it, you find yourself this is also referencing the family who are leeching off the rich family. But the director even said in the marketing, that wasn't the case. It was a dual meaning, and you've also got obviously the poor family conning the rich, but you've also got the rich family leeching off the poor because they can't do anything for themselves.
Yeah,
and it's not just a let's hate the rich or let's attack the poor. It's a very, it's not subtle in its themes, but it's well nuanced, I thought.
Yeah, it does make you think. It's like, you know, who has been taken advantage of here? Really, like, you know, who is the victim in all of this? And I think as the film sort of progresses, your opinions do veer quite wildly between one end of the extreme and the other. I don't think there's any sort of straightforward, this isn't a wealthy bashing film or whatever. I do think you kind of veer towards different opinions as the film continues.
Yeah, we spoke about quite a lot about themes there, and John, it's you mentioned before we went on the air, it's a difficult film to speak about without talking about spoilers. The trailer for Parasite does mention the kind of main plot of the film that I've just mentioned, but there's so much more to it. John, how can you kind of describe that without giving it away?
Well, it's like Mary said, it's a socio-economic kind of theme that sort of runs through it. That's the main part of it. But I don't think any of the characters in it are particularly evil or bad. They're all just trying to do what they can for themselves, trying to get a leg up. You mentioned the actual title of the film, Parasite. It works on several different levels, like you say. The poor people are regarded as being parasites, but within their own living environment, they have the stink bugs, which get fumigated very early on, and the stink bugs are parasites that are living off them as well. And the area they're living in, people are sort of leeching off of them in terms of their class and their inability to actually get a job. The very first scene of it, they're folding up pizza boxes because that's all they can do, and they're getting paid like a pittance for it. And of course, the father makes a complete mess of it. 1 in 4. I really loved that when they were talking about all the pizza boxes and saying 1 in 4 of these pizza boxes are just a complete write-off, and the father's just standing there looking sort of sheepish to the side, not really concentrating, and the rest of the family are just looking at him going, come on, you need to get a leg up here, you need to get on with this. About 30 minutes into it, one of the characters says, oh, so we're moving to the next phase already? And at that point you think, well, this isn't quite what I was expecting here. This is something slightly different. And it moves into different territory from there. As you say, we're not going anywhere near spoilers. I would urge people to watch it because it's a film that really rewards your viewing if you're actually going to have a wee bit of patience with it and try and get into the themes and everything as well. I think it's one of these films, it's subtle, but it's pretty good, actually. Yeah, enjoyed it.
I also thought it kind of touched on luck maybe a wee bit, because obviously there's the presence of this kind of lucky stone, but also like the dad, who is known kind of throughout the film as Mr. Kim, at one point says, we're living in an era where 500 people apply for a security guard job. And it's like, what is the difference between him and Mr. Park, who obviously seems to be involved in some sort of technology or whatever? Could these people, one decision in their life could have taken them maybe the other way? And I almost feel like it's kind of luck that they've happened upon this family, and luck that they've been able to sort of bring each other family member in different jobs, like driver, housekeeper, tutor, all that sort of thing. And I feel like it's one of those kind of things where it's like, where did Mr. Park's life go so right that the dad character's life went so wrong, and he is, not folding pizza boxes properly and not getting paid properly for it? And I do think that kind of permeates the film a wee bit. It's like, how did they end up so lucky and fortunate and wealthy, and that family are living in a basement where somebody pisses on their living room window like every other night?
Yeah,
it's-
it does touch on that, doesn't it? You see quite early on that they're not leeches. They're just trying to get ahead. They're trying to get a leg up more than anything else. But they work really hard at it. And they also mentioned quite early on that the father had a number of jobs. He was running various businesses and everything, and that's part of the reason why they are in the position they're in, because they've lost so much money investing in shops and cafes and all sorts of things like that. And as you say, it's just luck that at some point you get a leg up, you get recognised for your talents, or it might even be who you know. There's obviously the same sort of class divide in South Korea as there is everywhere else. And if you're in a certain socio-economic group, you have got more chance of getting something because of the people you know, and the people that are around you trust you because you're part of the same sort of group as them. It's the difficulty in actually breaking into that group. And that's kind of touched upon. The son says, do I fit into this? Do you see me fitting into this group? And the daughter who's tutoring doesn't really give him an answer because she kind of knows what the answer is. And she doesn't want to lose him as a tutor, and she obviously regards him as a friend as well at some point. So it's all got to do with that as well. Like I say, it's luck with, and it starts off with the Scholar Stone.
Yeah.
And what they say about the Scholar Stone is, oh, these are regarded as being very lucky. But again, the young boy in it, he actually has some sort of affinity with the Scholar Stone, and if he says, I feel like I'm carrying this with me everywhere I go. So I mean, what does a stone do? It weighs you down. That's what I took from that he's always feeling kind of weighed down, even though it's meant to be lucky. He's not really lucky at all.
You kind of mentioned about like the family are grafters. They may have like the poor family as a Kim family. They do con the Park family, but when they get into the house, they are working. They are doing their job, and there's not a maliciousness at first, but without going too spoilery, they do start going too far. I believe start orchestrating and manipulating events for their own outcome and their own benefit. And yeah, once they're in that position, they do graft and they do work, but it's at the expense of other people who are innocent, really, in their deception.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and essentially people who are of the same socioeconomic class as them, so it's almost like they're doing the dirty on their own kind, if you want to put it that way, like the group that they feel like they belong to. Like they're not, they're sort of laughing at the ridiculousness of, the art therapy and that the young child is a genius and all, like they are kind of sort of poking fun at the mother's neurosis. But also, the people that they affect in this are people that, like them, are need to work for a living and need the money. So that's why I was so conflicted about them, because it was like they were doing the dirty on their own sort of like group of people, if that makes sense.
It does, and I find the fact that there's kind of conflicting feelings towards the characters is perfectly fine. There's nothing simple about the film. There's nothing simple about the characters. It should challenge you. We do mention we're not going to talk about spoilers and things that come. You can't see this, but you can't see the twist coming. I don't know how you could. But what the film doesn't do is change tone or mood on a whim. You can feel it building. You can feel the tension. You know something's going to happen. You just don't know what. But near the beginning of the film, is the actor who plays Mr. Kim, he's very funny. He's got a deadpan delivery to him. And yeah, he's a prototypical straight man, so to speak, in comedy. And he's just got this kind of like deadpan facial expression consistently every time there's a comedy. He's there. Mm-hmm. So did you get that? I thought it was really, really funny for having really to do much.
Yeah, less is more with that performance. It really is at the beginning. He doesn't need to be a comedic character. He just is, just in the writing and in the way he does the actual performance as well. He comes across like a straight man, but yes, he's magnetic. You're looking to him in every scene to see exactly what he's doing as everything else sort of unfolds around him. And he is obviously very still, and he doesn't give an awful lot away, but yes, it's very entertaining, really is.
I really love the scene as well, where they were making him learn lines for his con, And they were like,
That was
no, no, no,
amazing.
no, you're doing that too over the top. Your emotions are up here. You need to bring them right back down. But it was like the first time he'd ever sort of really expressed himself. So it did seem so over the top because he had been so straight up until that point. And the fact they were making him learn lines, like, oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
I've always said it takes a very talented actor to play a bad actor in a scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's incredible, and that was absolutely. That's the thing about the film; it is genuinely hilarious. There's so many scenes; it's really kind of just laugh out loud, and you kind of touch the kind of naive aspect of the Park mother.
Like, what I thought was really weird as well is that Mr. Park and Mrs. Park always referred to each other as like Da Song's mother, or Da, like they never referred to each other by their Christian names. You know his name is Nathan Park because there's a sign up and like there's loads of posters up in the house, like and for his techie company. But I can't remember actually hearing her first name.
Do you know, if you maybe I actually think it was always kind of case like Mrs. Park and like mother and things like that, and it is that kind of. That's a very kind of class thing as well. You wouldn't really get that in the lower classes, like people referring to each other by titles, and it's almost like they were doing that. But they're doing that just in front of the help, so to speak, to let them know this is how you address us.
Yeah, I just thought she was like your typical, like, had far too much money, lonely housewife, didn't know what to do with it. Like, oh, my kid must be a prodigy because, you know, he likes to scribble with some crayons. And I really like that kind of, again, it kind of made me sort of old-fashioned kind of screwball comedies because she was this sort of over-the-top character, again, to her husband, who was very, very kind of straight and, you know, would just give an eye roll or, you know, deliver a line really sarcastically. He wasn't, he was a kind of neat contrast to her.
And you do feel a bit sorry for her, because she is just quite. You see something like the piss taken at them so easily. They've got the kind of like the mental capacity to kind of understand that they get the piss taken out of them. But at the same time, she'll then do other stuff. You feel less sympathetic towards her because, again, your own kind of class prejudice comes in. And you find it hard to feel sorry for people that are this wealthy. Maybe not so John. John was probably in boardroom.
John was like, "Oh, that reminds me of my summer house. That looks small."
That reminds me, I better go and feed the help.
I was just going to say about the sort of naivety of the wife. Some of that is actually borne out by previous trauma, which I won't bother talking about because it is sort of a third act revelation, if you like, but it's mentioned very early on, and then she's quite buttoned down. She's quite protective of her child, so that's why, in a way, she's going to extremes with him and calling him a prodigy, trying to search for something that he actually can be good at. So it's art, and it's buying everything from the United States, which I thought was quite a nice touch, because if you think about it, most consumer stuff that you buy now comes from the Far East, it comes from Taiwan, it comes from China. But as a sort of a snobbish thing, oh no, everything we're buying is coming from the US, you know, we're buying arrows, so therefore they come from the US, you know, so it must be quality. It's not local. It's not local to the region. I thought that was very nicely done.
What I would say regarding the kind of like the second half of the film, if we're going to be kind of plot points, but the themes are still prevalent. The same themes still exist throughout the film. If anything, they just get heightened and more intense. And it is a very interesting film because it starts off and it is this kind of, you say, this kind of haphazard comedy, quite screwball, and it is really kind of funny. And then you're kind of on the edge of your seat, and the kind of anxiety's building, and you're just like, what the hell is going to happen here? But it never really changes in the way that it contrasts. It still feels like the same film.
Yeah, it's quite operatic in that sense. It's this total balance of tragicomedy the whole way through it as it builds, and as you say, the tone never shifts on a whim. All you're wondering is how long they're going to get away with this, and that's kind of what the film's working towards, and that's how it keeps you on the hook.
Well, you won't be surprised to hear there's talk of a remake, but it's going to be an HBO TV show, and it's going to focus on the events we didn't see in the film.
Did I not hear about this? Somebody said Mark Ruffalo's been cast.
Mark Ruffalo's in
that well-known Asian actor, Mark Ruffalo, yeah.
Yeah, he's rumoured to be starring in it. But just as you were saying earlier, there's so much in the film we don't get the kind of backgrounds to X, Y, and Z, or see what happens in between scenes and stuff. Apparently the show's going to kind of have that, and whether that's going to be revealing too much or is going to complement it.
Yeah, I feel like I don't need that.
No, I don't think we need it either. And the thing about the film as well, of course, all the kind of themes in that are very universal when it comes to class, but it's very, very much a Korean film because those houses exist, those kind of neighborhoods where the small houses are kind of built in basements and that, they're real. If they're all kind of talked out on Parasite without just giving away what happens, it's a recommend for me, Mary.
Absolutely, I recommend from me. And I think what was really nice was at one of the award ceremonies, Bong Joon-ho said, if we can overcome the 1-inch barrier of subtitles, we'd see a lot more cinema. And I can't stress that enough. I'm a huge proponent of, expanding, beyond whatever blockbusters playing in your local multiplex. And as John said, actually seeing good stories. I love this. And I think it definitely deserves the plaudits it's getting. I think it's definitely worth watching, absolutely.
John?
Yep, absolutely. Thoroughly recommend it. It's a great film. I've seen it once. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. And also there's a black and white version of it coming out on the 5th of March, which I'm looking forward to as well. And the director himself has said it's a total vanity project. I love black and white films. I wanted to see what this looked like in black and white, and it's getting a sort of a limited release as well. So probably going to try and see that as well. Or I could just turn down the colour contrast in my TV when it comes out in Blu-ray later on in the year.
Yeah, I mean, but as I found out, Bong Joon-ho as well, is you can't help but like the guy. He's got an incredible kind of like childish charm about him, where you see him kind of like winning, and you just see how much it means to him, and he just comes across such a likable guy that even if you weren't a fan of the film, you can't grudge him his success. He looks like a guy who deserves it.
Yeah, it was nice the way that he went out of his way at the Oscar ceremonies to quote Martin Scorsese and thank Quentin Tarantino, who was always somebody who supported him in the way that he supports a lot of non-English films, just saying you should see this film. And a lot of people would have seen a film based on a recommendation by Quentin Tarantino, let's face it.
There's some bare feet in the film, so...
제시카 외동딸 일리노이 시카고 과선배는 김치모 그는 이사촌.
So in light of Parasite being essentially a long con as one of its kind of overarching storylines, we thought we'd take a look at our favourite con movies. And this was actually quite hard to narrow down. It turns out cinema really loves a swindle. And we've all picked our top 3, and I'll be kicking things off with one of my favourite films for so many reasons, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. I have such fond memories of watching this because basically my papa had like 3 videos when I was wee. One was Riverdance, one was Dancing with Wolves, and one was Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And he said that Dirty Rotten Scoundrels was the only one I was allowed to watch because the other 2 weren't appropriate. Don't know what the fuck was going on in Riverdance, right? But Dirty Rotten Scoundrels was the one. So obviously stars Steve Martin and Michael Caine as these 2 fraudsters who kind of find themselves thrown together, and they are determined to sort of outcon each other by trying to see who can get money off of this American heiress, and it obviously all goes awry from there. They take on these different personalities. At one point, Steve Martin's sitting pretending to piss himself at a dinner table. He's got a cork on a fork and a eye patch on, and his name is Ripwreck. And then at other points, Steve Martin's pretending to be in a wheelchair and he can't walk, and Michael Caine is literally running up the room to just whip his legs to prove that he can't feel anything, and you can see Steve Martin like absolutely squirming, trying to disguise the pain. There's so many funny moments. And the other day when I was thinking about different con films, what popped into my head straight away was that woman on the plane who was like, "It's Fanny Eubanks of Omaha," and I don't know why that scene always sticks in my head, but it just makes me laugh so much. I think we can probably do a wee bit of spoilers on this. The film's like 20 or 30 years old. They turn out to be not the con artists they think they are, because they'd obviously been played by somebody else. I won't give away too much, but it's so much fun, and it's a kind of screwball comedy in the sense that we talked about a wee bit with Parasite. It's just sort of, you probably wouldn't get it made now because it's 2 white dudes taking advantage of people, so you probably wouldn't get this film made now, but I love it. It's funny, it's cheeky, it's over the top, it's ridiculous, and it's 2 just really good actors, Michael Caine and Steve Martin, just clearly just really fucking enjoying themselves. You can't ask for much more.
I have never seen it.
What? Thomas. Homework.
I know. I've never seen it. It was remade, wasn't it?
It was remade last year. It was remade as The Hustle.
Mm-hmm.
A female remake, which was not very good at all. It was a very dull remake because they tried to do too many things that were too similar in terms of the primary characters. The Michael Caine character and the Steve Martin character. Obviously, there's a real difference between their acting styles and the way they come across on screen. The Michael Caine character is very reserved and a gentleman.
Michael Caine being Michael Caine, yeah.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. And he's funny because of that.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to do anything else. It's like you were talking about in Parasite. He doesn't need to be anything other than what the story demands of him. So he's funny that way, but with the new one, no, didn't work at all. It was all very strained.
I didn't realise that existed, and also another reason why we should just stop remaking films. Like, just leave them as they are. Do you know what? It probably has dated a wee bit. I think the last time I watched it was a couple of years ago. It probably has dated a little bit, but it really is worth the watch. I have such fond memories of watching it when I was wee. So, and now that I'm older, actually watching it again, I'm like, my papa definitely shouldn't have let me watch this because there's some adult jokes that obviously flew over my head as a child, but now I'm looking at them going, wow. But no, it's really good. I can't recommend enough.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the 1973 film starring the dream team of Robert Redford and Paul Newman. I am, of course, talking about The Sting. Now, my mate seen this film and he just talked about it constantly, and I had never seen it. Bought me in DVD for my birthday one year, and yeah, I was just blown away by it. It starts off a very simple kind of premise where Robert Redford plays a grifter called Johnny Hooker, and his business partner is killed by notorious mobster Doyle Lonergan, played by the absolutely incredible, as always, Robert Shaw. Johnny Hooker wants to get his own back on Doyle, so he talks to old semi-retired con man Paul Newman's Henry Shaw Gondorf, and they basically concoct this elaborate scheme to try and get kind of like semi-revenge, get their own back, but con this mobster and try and not get murdered along the way. They've also got the FBI in their tail, and I don't want to say too much about the film because it's just full of so many twists and turns that it's just an absolute delight of a movie. It's quite funny. It's quite a drama at times as well. It can be quite like, oof, didn't really kind of see that coming, but it is a caper. It's supposed to be entertaining, and it's just a lot of fun. And Newman and Redford are obviously is well known for this is probably Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, if not known more so for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I think this is their best film though. The two have an incredible chemistry that you just can't teach. Yeah, if you haven't seen the film, just please go. I'm not going to say anything too much more about it. Just watch it. It's excellent. Excellent film. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah, I love it. And my dad introduced me to it, and every time I hear The Entertainer, I think of that film. I love the costumes and everything in it as well. And as you say, they've got this real chemistry in their partnership that it just feels really like you are kind of rooting for them, even though they're up to no good.
and Paul Newman is just so effortlessly cool in the movie. As you see, his kind of dress sense, you kind of trilby hat, his little moustache and stuff, and the scene in the train, he's kind of playing with the cards and that. It's just everything about the film it just oozes coolness. You want to be these people. Yeah,
absolutely.
I've seen this so many times, but it was one of these films again. It was on the television all the time, so you can't help but catching at some point. It's a long film, but it doesn't feel like it. But it just flows really, really nicely. I like the way it's chaptered as well. You get it almost. It's almost as if it's like a novelization of it, and it works superbly. Central performances, the music. Robert Shaw, who I really like anyway, is just fantastic in it as a sort of the boo hiss villain at points. Totally is.
Well. That's the right
he is. So I mean, that's the thing about the film. The story's got a simplicity to it that it's like, here's the good guys, here's the bad guys, here's who you're supposed to cheer, here's who you're supposed to boo. But at the same time, the plot's really complicated.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and you don't realise that until all kind of starts to unravel, and then it's got this brilliant twist ending that just kind of like catches you by surprise, and you can't help but smile because you've also been conned.
Yeah.
My first pick is an Argentinian film from 2000 called Nine Queens, Nueva Reinas, as it was called in Argentina.
That is stunning. Can you do that again?
What, Nueva Reinas? You must hear Spanish all the time.
Chris only knows swear words. The way you said that there was beautiful.
The film centres around two con artists, two small-time con artists, Juan and Marcos, who meet by accident when Juan is carrying out a small con at a petrol station, trying to get more money in result of actually purchasing something. He does it once, gets away with it. The second time, he doesn't quite get away with it, and that's how himself and Marcos get together. Into their lap falls this scheme where they have the opportunity to sell a set of rare stamps, the 9 Queens in question, to I think it's a Spanish businessman who is just about to be indicted in some sort of fraud charges or something, and he's trying to get out of the country quickly, but he can't get his money out of the country, so therefore he's trying to convert as much of it as he can into something he can carry easily. Hence, the 9 Queens are worth something like £500,000, $500,000, I think it is. So they have these elaborate forged copies of the 9 Queens, and they have to go about convincing the businessman and the businessman's associates that they are the real deal. And obviously from there on in, the con is on. They bring a number of other people in to support them. They try and influence the valuator of the stamps as well, and take it from there. This is a film that, for two reasons, you really need to watch. One, the story is quite complex, it's quite tricky, and two, you're obviously reading the subtitles as well, so you're trying to get as much as you can from reading the bottom of the screen and the inflection that the actors are actually putting into their dialogue as well, which is never easy. That is a stumbling block for a lot of people with subtitled films, but it's a fantastic movie. It's absolutely brilliant. It grips you right from the start, and it just keeps going. The con element runs all the way through it, and obviously with a number of these con films, there's usually a heist element as well, which is obviously something we'll probably hit upon with some of our other films here, and we could probably do a complete podcast on it without any bother at all. I can think of three heist films off the top of my head quite easily.
Of course you can. That sounds really good. I've never seen that or even heard of it, but I think I want to try and track it down and find it. It sounds good.
It's one of these films that was lauded in its home country at the time, and it found an audience in sort of art house cinemas. The Argentinian version of the BAFTAs, it was nominated for 28 categories and it won 21 of them.
Wow.
But yet that wasn't even a selling point for sort of international markets. It got a reasonably small release all over another sort of continents and everything, but it's one that's kind of gained a bit of traction as being a class film that hasn't dated at all. It works just as well now than it did almost 20 years ago.
I'm definitely going to try and find that.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say it wasn't a selling point for yourself. You just fancied learning Spanish that morning. You put it on.
In between Korean and Russian lessons, you know?
Yeah, no, Spanish is my current obsession. I'm trying to learn a wee bit of that just now, just so I can ask for more than just 2 beers.
Really important for your trips to Citrus, that's for sure.
Absolutely, yes.
So my next choice is actually a documentary from 2012 called The Imposter. And I caught this on TV one night, and I think I caught it like 15 minutes. I missed like the first 15 minutes or whatever. But by the end of it, I was practically inside the TV, like jaw on the floor, couldn't believe what the fuck I had just seen. So basically, this family in Texas, their 16-year-old son is missing, and this young guy in Spain who has a European accent, it's not quite distinguishable as being specifically French or Spanish or whatever, but he has kind of a European accent, i.e. not English. He turns up in Spain going, "Oh, I'm their missing son." And so there's this whole big thing if he has to get interviewed and they have to fly him over, and he's convinced that, I'm definitely their son, and there's a whole big long convoluted story as to how he got there. This family, they're so excited to have their son back, and you're kind of watching it going, he doesn't sound or look like any of the rest of you. What the fuck is going on? Like, he's clearly not even American, but sure. But you just think, do you know what? Maybe they're so overwhelmed by grief and the loss of their son that they're just willing to accept that anyone out there could be their son. And you're like, this guy's a total fucking con artist. He's taken this family for an absolute ride. What a scumbag. Then, as the film progresses and there's sort of rumours of, oh, the neighbours saw the family digging a big hole in the garden 3 years ago, circa when their son went missing, you're like, they're playing each other. No wonder they're so happy to accept that this random stranger is their son. It is a brilliant true crime documentary, and just so many moments that you're just sitting there thinking, what? Who's kidding? Again, it's that who's kidding who sort of thing. And if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it. It's, if you like true crime, which I do, I'm Columbo at heart, and I think I can solve these things just by watching them. And in terms of, as we spoke in Parasite, who's kidding who's taking advantage of who, this is definitely one of those ones that will keep you thinking.
I've only got the vaguest recollection of it, to be honest with you. But I remember watching it and like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I spent most of the film actually just shouting at the screen, what the fuck? Because
yeah, totally.
It almost at the very start of it, you get the character, the imposter coming in, and I think they show you a photograph of the real person, and there's nothing like him.
Yeah.
And it just goes from there, and it's almost like there's a desperation in the family just to get some sort of closure, get some answers, and they're willing to accept all of these inconsistencies just to have somebody in their life that they think is their son. And it's kind of sad that way, and it's kind of heartbreaking, but at the same time you're going, really? Come on.
I am going to go for Steven Spielberg's 2002 Catch Me If You Can, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hanks, Christopher Walken and Martin Sheen. This is, I think this is one of Spielberg's most underrated films. I mean, look at the cast right away with DiCaprio and Hanks in the lead roles. DiCaprio playing Frank Abagnale, who was a young con man who managed to convince an airline that it was a pilot. And this is a true story. And Tom Hanks plays the investigator that's after him. And it is a tale of cat and mouse, the whole film. It's a chase movie for the most part. But it's absolutely, it's really kind of mind-blowing how this guy managed to con so many people, not just by his skills as a forger and like check fraud and things like that, but it was, you get a guy like DiCaprio playing him, it shows you how that charm comes into it, how he can convince people of things just with a little wink and a smile and being good looking. And it was a con artist and invested himself in the con. And this is a slight spoiler, so please just hit pause or skip. It was so good at being a criminal, the FBI hired him for their anti-fraud department.
Learn from the best.
It makes perfect sense to do that. But yes, this is an absolute cracking film. It's great cast, great chemistry, well-told story, and it's quite sad at times as well. A bit of sadness in it, a bit tragic. You see how kind of lonely this life is he's leading. It looks great on paper, wheeling and dealing, high life and stuff, but there's a scene when he's speaking to Tom Hanks' FBI agent on the phone, and he says to him, "Why'd you call me?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just gloating because you can't catch me." I think you're calling me because you have nobody else to speak to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, it's pretty heavy. It's pretty heavy. He's the closest thing he's got to a friend is this guy that's actually after him. And yeah, it's a brilliant film. I highly recommend it. I can't believe it's 2002 though. That's terrifying.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's, as you say, there's a lot to be said for charm and that whole sort of, that old-fashioned sales technique of nodding at somebody so they nod back at you and they somehow end up going along with what you've proposed. But yeah, I think the sort of one of the takeaways was that the Tom Hanks character was the only person he had some sort of meaningful relationship with, because they were almost sort of dependent on each other in a way. And it kind of highlighted how lonely it was for him, even though he was, jet setting and all these parties and all the rest of it. Like he had no one.
Nice wee parallel with Parasite, the daughter in the family. She's a bit of a forger, and she has an awful lot of charm about her that she can basically get through any situation. Basically, when she says at one point that she didn't know anything about art therapy, but she just Googled it and then ad-libbed it. That's the same kind of idea as Frank Abagnale. He
I
gets
thought you
a
were going to say
certain
that's the
amount
same
of
kind of idea as our
knowledge and just
podcast.
uses that and then if you want to look at it that way, yeah, I won't say that I've only just been looking up the films I'm supposed to be talking about.
John hasn't seen that sexy Argentinian film that he was talking about. He just wanted to roll that off his tongue.
My second choice is the 2006 film Lucky Number Slevin. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Yep.
Have, yes.
Excellent movie. It is basically the wrong man at the wrong time in the wrong place. It starts off as it means to go on. You're basically told this is a con movie with the Bruce Willis character, Good Cat, sitting in an airport lounge with a man, and he's talking about the Kansas City Shuffle. And he explains exactly what the Kansas City Shuffle is. He says, you make everybody look right and then you go left. And that is pretty much the basis of the whole film. Film stars Josh Hartnett, Morgan Freeman, Ben Kingsley, Lucy Liu, there's Stanley Tucci, Bruce Willis in there as well. It's one of these all-star cast sort of vehicles, and it's just a brilliant movie. It looks fantastic. It's got a real sense of style about it, from the sort of Art Deco wallpaper, sort of all browns and reds and everything. Every single room looks great. Josh Hartnett looks brilliant with his shirt and jumper combination in every shot when he's actually wearing clothes. Obviously, there's a few scenes where all he's wearing is just a towel and a smile. And the way that the story unfolds, it's all seen from the point of the character Slevin. He is initially mistaken for another man, and he gets involved with two sets of crime bosses who this other man owes money to, and basically this guy is getting made an example of. And there's also another whole story going around that somebody's bumping off various members of these two crime syndicates, employees. A couple of bookies get shot and things like that, and nobody knows who's doing it. And the story just weaves in and out of Slevin's experiences, how he's actually being treated by the various people, and how some of the other seemingly minor characters are actually coming into it. If you watch it closely enough, there's a lot of hints and indications about how it's going to go, but the first time you watch it, you're just totally drawn in by the art design, by the costumes, and by the performances themselves. So you tend to miss a few things because you're just enjoying it so much as a spectacle. But that's the kind of thing that really is good with these films, because it stands up to repeat viewing. And even though by the end of the film you know exactly what's happened, you still get something from it watching it maybe a second or a third time down the line. It's very clever that way.
I've only seen the film once, and
Well, go back and see it again then, for goodness sake, I've just told you.
And what's the thing I was going to say? I can't really remember much of it at all. I remember I did really like it when I did see it, and obviously the kind of title was a kind of play on words, because you keep thinking it's called Lucky Number 7.
Yes.
And Josh Hartnett, what happened to him?
I always thought he was terrible in films.
He didn't really fulfill his ambition after that, I don't think. He was doing like a fair amount of TV work, and he's been in some smaller roles, still leading actor kind of material, but it's been quite small roles and things, which is a bit of a shame. I actually quite liked him. I thought he was good. Penny Dreadful, he was very good in that. That was a Sky HBO TV series. Yeah. It was good.
That was great, that show.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cracking show, that.
I just think my recollections of him are Pearl Harbor, which he was quite wooden.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think anybody was good in Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, well, that's a fair point. No, I enjoyed Lucky Number 11. Like, I think it had sort of like North by Northwest and almost kind of Twin Peaks kind of vibes to it, like as well. Like they're talking about like, the decor and stuff like that. Always reminded me of the gambling den in Twin Peaks. And I think the whole idea of the wrong man is it's like one of the oldest stories in the world, but it is executed really, really well in that film.
The con element in the film is actually quite subtle, and I can't really talk about it because it would spoil it. Mm-hmm. But there is a real sort of con element to the film. obviously trying to tie in with our subject here. Because in the face of it, from what I've said, it doesn't sound like that at all.
Basically, John had a plethora of con films, but as the president of the Josh Hartnett fan club, he had to try and shoehorn them into his pick.
His hair, I must say, his hair looks really soft, even though it's quite styled and it's fake. It looks really soft. I wouldn't mind running my fingers through it.
Fuck did that come from? John, we all know if there's hair chat in this group, it's me running my fingers through your hair.
Well,
you don't get to do that to anyone else.
I know, maybe he's just patiently waiting for you to get a haircut, John, so you can post some pictures on Instagram again.
Oh, they are really making my heart flutter. You need to stop that. Getting those mean and moody black and whites done.
It's not my doing. This is the barbers. I just seem to be there when they're taking
It's what my
pictures.
public want.
What kind of
Well,
barbers
yes,
do you
I
go
don't
to?
want
You
to
take a photo shoot at the same time?
Yeah, it's not even just like a before and after for Instagram. It's like a full black and white like headshot.
I mean, the term something for the weekends really changed, eh?
Standards, my dear Thomas. Standards.
You can just imagine him getting like fitted for a suit as well.
I know, totally. Not that lining, Jeeves. I prefer the other one.
I'll go with the red this time.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Right,
sorry, John.
moving on from taking the piss out of me relentlessly.
I can only think, no,
No,
John, you're
it's
the only
not taking
person
the
I can
piss.
think that it seems we'll take the piss, but everything's a compliment.
Your head should be this size by rights.
Well,
Well, definitely before the watershed.
Oh dear. I know it's the Lord's Day, John. What are you doing? Okay, so my last pick, and it should be no surprise what's coming, is The Usual Suspects. Absolutely brilliant film, one of the most sort of iconic film posters and closing scenes in sort of all of cinema history, written by the wonderful Christopher McQuarrie. And it is one of those films that obviously the first time you see it, it keeps you guessing right until the very end. It is a properly well played out long con, obviously on repeat view and you know what's coming, but the first time you see it, it does really kind of keep you guessing. There's some absolutely amazing performances in there. Again, like you said about Lucky Number 11, it's a kind of all-star cast. You've got, Pete Postlethwaite, Giancarlo Esposito, who's Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. You've got Benicio del Toro, you've got Gabriel Byrne, and dare I whisper it, Kevin Spacey. So obviously the whole thing is, the whole way through this film, there are all these con artists and sort of like guns for hire, and it's, who is Kaiser Soze, and that's the whole premise of the film. And to this day, I think it stands up. It's one of the sort of best endings I think ever. It's so subtle, and it's one of those films that makes, when you watch it the first time and you see the ending happening, you're like, oh, that's it, and it is a total light bulb moment, and I love it for that reason. There's so many, as I say, good individual performances, but as a sort of group cast, it all comes together really nicely. It's super well written, really, really sharp, and as I say, it's one of the best sort of long cons I think ever played out in cinema. And even on repeat viewing, when you know what's coming, it still stands up as a story. It's great.
yep,
I know we're not allowed to talk about Kevin Spacey anymore, so I'm just keeping a lid on it.
I think we talk about Kevin Spacey in every single podcast.
Well, a girl's got to try. Somebody's got to rehabilitate him. Like, if Jodie Foster can do it for Mel Gibson, I can do it for Kevin Spacey.
I don't think Jodie Foster did do it for Mel Gibson, to be fair, but I think she tried.
Perhaps a film called The Beaver wasn't the best idea given the circumstances.
I can't believe that film has been mentioned in the last two podcasts. Or at least the last few. I mentioned The Beaver a few podcasts ago.
Oh, that's right. So you did. I forgot about that. John just likes fucking saying beaver. That wasn't film related.
I'm not going to rise to that one. I'm not going to say.
So obviously you two have seen The Usual Suspects. I assume pretty much everyone on the planet has. You think it still stands up?
Definitely. But you know what really annoys me about seeing The Usual Suspects for the first time?
Mm-hmm.
I had the ending unintentionally ruined for me.
Oh.
And I mean unintentionally is because I had seen Scary Movie. Now, if you've all seen Scary Movie, you know the ending of it parodies The Usual Suspects.
Yep.
I didn't know this when I watched it. I just thought it was a funny ending. And it was quite funny. And then somebody said to me, oh, The Usual Suspects ending. I'm like, what? So I'm watching Usual Suspects going, well, I've got a rough idea what's going to happen.
I was like, I always remember one Christmas I had bought Gosford Park on DVD and I went to stick it on, and my dad went, "Oh, is that the one where so and so murders so and so?" And I was like, "I haven't seen this yet." Spoilers.
Again, it's one of these films. Multiple viewings really benefits it. You know, I've watched it a number of times right up until obviously we had to put together the Kevin Spacey bonfire and get rid of everything. But you know,
Well, we're all kind of can't talk about Kevin Spacey here. We're all forgetting Bryan Singer's cancelled as well.
Well, I deliberately mentioned written by Christopher McQuarrie and not directed by Bryan Singer for that very reason. I mean, I do love Chris
Written by
McQuarrie.
Christopher McQuarrie and starring Gabriel Byrne, Benicio del Toro.
Everyone except that guy with the
Stephen
shaved head,
Baldwin.
yep, and the limp.
the guy with the lump.
Stephen Baldwin's even great in this film, and I only know his 2 films Stephen Baldwin's been in: Usual Suspects and Shark in Venice. I went with Christopher Nolan's Inception, which, as John you mentioned earlier, most con films also have a heist element to them.
Yeah.
This is, for all intents and purposes, a heist movie, but it's based around a con. Now, the heist in this movie, they're not stealing anything. Instead, they're planting something, and they're planting an idea. Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Tom Hardy, they're a gang of con artists, basically, and mind bank robbers, for lack of a better term. And they get hired by Ken Watanabe, who want him to infiltrate Cillian Murphy's mind, plant an idea that means when he inherits his dad's company, he'll dissolve the empire. And you're like, okay, what? It's a very complex, complicated type idea. But the basic premise of it is they have to go into somebody's dreams and con them into doing something. And you've got Tom Hardy's character, affectionately known as Imze, who is a forger, but he forges people by shape-shifting into them in the dream world and pretending to be them so they could help plant this idea. And the film is absolutely insane. I mean, visually, it's incredible. The plot's like, what the fuck is going on here? But there's also that beautiful simplicity to it as well, because it is a con movie. But like all con movies, the idea may be simple, the execution always keeps you guessing.
It's wild. I remember watching it in the cinema and thinking, I'm going to have to watch this like 6 more times to try and decipher what is going on.
I'm just such a massive, massive fan of this film. I've seen it so many times. Talk about ensemble cast. Recently, the Usual Suspects. The cast in this is, I mean, Pete Postlethwaite's in this as well. Funnily enough, but it's just a brilliant cast. Nobody's bad in it. You get Ellen Page as well. You got Dilip Rao, Tom Berenger, Marion Cotillard in it. Christ, Michael Caine. It's just so many people in this film you forget are in it. Yeah, I think it's a total modern classic. It's one of those kind of movies that I think is only going to get better with age. It's already 10 years old, which is quite scary.
Wow.
And I think it's going to be looked at very favourably in years to come as a classic of this era. And I think in spite of all this kind of like love I've gave it, it remains one of Nolan's most underrated movies.
Do you think?
I think so. I mean, it's like people kind of... I think it's often forgotten about in amongst the fanfare of The Dark Knight and films he's done recently. People kind of forget Inception is there. I believe it anyway.
Yeah, I suppose you could be right, actually. And I also think that for some people, it's like if they don't sort of settle into it like fairly quickly and sort of get to grips with it's a con movie, but not as you know it sort of thing, like it can maybe turn people off because it's a very, very complex, like you do have to really pay attention to what it's not something you can watch on the couch and sort of be on your phone or talk, like you have to properly give your attention to it.
And it's just it's a con within a con type idea, as like other films I've kind of mentioned have explored brilliantly. With this, the con within a con is a dream within a dream, and for them to implement the idea, they have to keep going further and deeper into the dream world. And the deeper the dream world they go, that's when it starts getting dangerous, because they've got to start kind of forgetting who they are and where they are and what's real and what's not. And it's just I don't want to say too much about it because if people haven't seen it, really see it. It's mind blowing. And it's one of those films as well. It was an original screenplay,
Yeah.
a blockbuster movie. Wasn't based in anything. Wasn't based in a book. Wasn't based in a comic. Wasn't based in a remake of anything. It made almost $1 billion at the box office.
I think we've had this argument a million times over in here. There's always a place for your sort of big kind of popcorn blockbusters and your superhero movies, but I know they always say there's only 7 stories in the world, but I'm interested in the way they're being told and the more original content we can get and something that actually makes you think, you can't put a price on that.
My final pick is the talented Mr. Ripley from 1999, an Anthony Minghella film, which is an adaptation of the Patricia Highsmith novel from 1955. It concentrates on the main character, Tom Ripley, who is a sort of down-at-heel young man living in New York. He is mistaken for a friend of Dickie Greenleaf. Dickie Greenleaf's father believed that he went to Princeton with him, and Tom doesn't correct him in any way. And as a consequence, Mr. Greenleaf Sr. Enlists the help of Tom to basically bring his wayward son back from Italy, he has been living there for some time off of his father's coin and basically not doing anything. His father wants him back in the fold because he wants him to take over his shipbuilding business. So Ripley heads out to Italy and meets up with Dickie and Dickie's girlfriend and basically inveigles himself into their life. He does it in a very clever way in that he just tells them straight up why he's there. He doesn't try to pretend he's not, because he's working a sort of a long con on them, which is basically he's seen their lifestyle and it's something that he aspires to and it's something that he wants to become himself. And he finds the easiest way to do that is to basically get so deep into Dickie's life that he can learn lessons from him and in a way take over from him as well. The problem that Ripley finds is he's not much of a planner. He plans to a certain extent, but he's got no contingencies. So when certain events happen, he's scrambling about and there's a certain amount of luck involved in the way that he gets out of certain situations and he moves into others. There's sort of fortuitous events that play in his favour based on the fact that he is regarded as being a wealthy American. And it's sort of brought to the screen in such a way that you're really tense all the time watching it, because at any moment he could get caught out in a lie, and time again he seems to just manage to get away with it no more. But you can tell that it's just setting up a problem for them about 20 or 30 minutes down the line in the film. Fantastic performances. Matt Damon is absolutely amazing in this. If you think about the roles that he'd taken up to that point, he was still very young and upcoming, but this is a very, very deep role. He's a horrible, nasty person, but he has a goal and he realises what that goal is. Up against him in sort of the acting stakes, we've got Gwyneth Paltrow, Jude Law as Dickie. There's a small role from Cate Blanchett. There's Philip Seymour Hoffman, Jack Davenport, and then at the very end there is a very small role for Philip Baker Hall, who is just an absolutely fantastic actor. If you've never seen a film, I think it's a film called Hard Date. He is in that and he's just absolutely brilliant in it, but he's got a very small role in this film as a detective. It's just amazing, absolutely brilliant. It helps the fact that, even though I've mentioned that the Tom Ripley character is horrible, everybody else is horrible as well. There's no nice characters in this whatsoever. So in a way, you don't know who you're supposed to be rooting for. Are you meant to be rooting for Dickie because Dickie's a complete arse? He's just horrible all the way through the film. He's lived a life of privilege, and he's just not nice. The character played by Gwyneth Paltrow initially starts out very nice, quite naive, gentle, same sort of idea as we were mentioning before with the Mrs. Park in Parasite. She's obviously come from wealth, she's come from money, and because of that, she's relatively gentle, relatively naive, but she changes during the course of the film as well. And she's not nice either. Philip Seymour Hoffman, oh man, he's the worst out of the lot of them. He's just, when he's introduced, the first thing he does is he jumps out of a sports car, and you think, guy's an arse. You just get that instant impression. It's such a good piece of introductory acting for a character. You just hate him right from the word go. It's just absolutely brilliant. The film itself, just over 2 hours long, works perfectly. It felt like about 15, 20 minutes. I was actually sitting there watching it. I sat and watched it last night as a wee refresher, and I loved every single minute of it. Such a good film.
Oh, I confessed at the beginning before we started recording that I had read the book but not seen the film, and I did really enjoy the book. I like Patricia Highsmith's writing. I now want to go and watch it actually because I just want to see Philip Seymour Hoffman jumping out of a sports car. I want that instant reaction of just arse.
Yeah.
See, I've seen the film. I've seen it years ago, and I don't remember being a big fan of it. I do remember it not being what I thought it would be. It did make me feel quite uncomfortable, and obviously the way it's supposed to. It was quite tense. It was quite upsetting in its own kind of way because, as you say, nobody's really likable in it. I would give it another chance though. I haven't seen the sequel.
Ripley's Game, is that?
Yeah, John Malkovich, and that looked more from the impression I got from the trailer what I expected the talented Mr. Ripley to be.
I think that the film and the book captures Ripley at a very young age. He's not the sort of the full con artist. Mm-hmm. He is very much learning his way. He learns an awful lot as he goes along here. He becomes far better at what he does. And again, he's one of these characters that's very plausible because he agrees with you. He's got a very open way about him. He smiles all the time. Mm-hmm. You see him becoming the consummate con artist, and you can tell his brain's always working. He's learning as he's going along all the time.
I'm deadly serious.
That is our top 3 con movies. There's some cracking choices there. Some I haven't seen, some I haven't heard of. Let us know what your choices are. If you agree with us, disagree, let us know at Moviescramble on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Mail John, hang about outside his house, a big tree in the background with something good to climb and
loads of good coverage, we're fine. Loads of good coverage.
Somebody please go and help Mary. She was locked in the attic, I think, her boyfriend. Just put it up there out the way. We did get an email, and not necessarily regarding con movies, although The Big Lebowski does have elements of that. But we got an email from Andrew Doig at the Lockdowns Film Festival, who has talking about the spin-off of The Big Lebowski that's coming out regarding John Turturro's character, Jesus, in the film's called The Jesus Rolls. Now, he's wanting to ask us, what characters do we think, what scene-stealing characters that have cameos in movies do we think deserve their own film?
Well, the Philip Seymour Hoffman character from The Talented Mr. Ripley, he deserves his own film right off, you know. The further adventures, I would say, yeah. You know, as he's because basically that character just basically works his way around Italy, sleeping with women basically everywhere he goes and listening to jazz. So there's a film, right? In fact, that's a TV series. Don't know who'd get to play him now, mind you, but you know, could be interesting.
Maybe the Alec Baldwin character in Glengarry Glen Ross, if I could speak.
Oh man, yeah, good choice.
That's a cracking choice because that is a total show stealing scene.
Yeah, like I think that I was trying to, like that to me really quickly is the most obvious thing of somebody who just has a tiny little part in a film, but is something that you really like. It's always like one of those films where you you think his part's bigger than what it is because you remembered it more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I would think I'm going to go with Christopher Walken in True Romance because he's literally in one scene the entire film.
Yeah.
Almost steals the entire movie. And kind of leaves you... You think he comes back into it. He's such a memorable character. You assume he comes back into this movie at some point. It never does. You could make a whole film around that character easily.
Yeah, you totally could. Oh,
I'm glad they haven't.
Yeah,
What?
Stop giving Hollywood ideas, Thomas.
But thanks, Andrew. That was a cracking question. We do appreciate you sending it in. If anybody else has any other suggestions of their favourite cameos in movies and they would like to see them in their own movie, please let us know at Moviescramble at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and email at
podcast@moviescramble.co.uk.
excellent.
근데 지금 진짜로 이상한 게 뭔 것 같아.
Well, that's us about the corn movies and done a little bit for the fans and answering some questions. But
It feels
We're
good
all
saying
about the
fans,
fans.
doesn't it? More than fan.
Plural.
Plural, yes, I can think of at least 3 people that listen to this podcast now. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
But-
well, Mary hasn't been in the pub for a wee while, so give it a chance. She'll meet some more.
True. Yeah. Maybe picking up strange fans in pubs. But
It's these
There's been a
dulcet
lot of-
tones, Thomas.
thanks everybody for tuning in to the latest Moviescramble podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you've liked our recommendations. If you haven't seen the films we've been speaking about, please do go and see them or download them legally, of course, or stream them. Regarding Parasite, please go and see it in the cinema. It deserves your attention. Any shout outs for anybody?
I would just like to say that my dad embraced technology and listened to the 1917 podcast, and John, he was absolutely thrilled that you did the broadsword calling Danny Boy shout out. He was super thrilled about that.
Nice, good stuff. I don't have any shout outs to give to anybody because I don't talk about the staff.
Well, on that note, it is kind of getting to lunchtime, and whereas me and Mary will have to go and make our sandwiches up, John's probably getting his caviar prepared as we speak. But thanks everybody for tuning
Beluga
in.
baby. Yeah.
I really want you to get a t-shirt saying that.
They've started their own t-shirts. If you're interested in some Moviescramble merchandise, give us a shout.
Oh yeah,
You've got
definitely.
bills to pay. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. And like I said, please be in touch and good night.